So this is where it all gets serious for Sweden and Japan. For one of them, it's their last day of competition in Bermuda. There will be no tomorrow. And the duel between Outridge and Barker has been a fascinating one. Neither has had total control of their campaign, if we're honest. Both have been susceptible at times. Both have faltered along the way. This is a test of nerve as much as anything today.
And you gotta wonder how much of that pre-race, just sailing casually out to the race course collision, A, affects Team Japan's boat, and B, affects them mentally. That's a shit. I mean, all this time and effort for years, and to hit something that you didn't even see below the surface on the way out to the start, trust me, that's not good.
Well, it's the kind of event that might just play on minds a little bit. Certainly the Swedes will look to take advantage if they possibly can. The Japanese will have to tuck it to one side and assume all is well, unless we are proved otherwise, and it will become pretty clear, you would imagine, from the boat itself and its maneuvering.
Exactly.
He goes beyond.
So the Swedes with port entry for the first race of the day. It might be the only race that they need, remember. Dean Barker will be very wary that one more mistake at the start, where he had so much trouble yesterday, could prove terminal to Japanese chances.
21 knots of breeze right now. We didn't see much match racing the other day when they had this amount of breeze. Today we're seeing obviously a battle right out of the blocks, and Artemis Racing turned back for that line very early and put themselves in a real suspect position right away. Barker's just going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing until either he gets an overlap or gets him there too early.
Up the line.
Dean bails out of the situation right now, and now it's just going to be time and distance. He's going to have to accelerate slightly in the wing wash of Artemis Racing, but he should pop through it very quickly. Ali, this is critical.
Make or break for the Japanese as they turn, and they are building speed well, and they are across the line first, and they are quickly up onto their foils, and the Swedes have a little bit to do.
So Japan kind of subtly did push Artemis Racing a little too close to the line. You just saw Japan be able to bear off a little bit earlier, get up on the foils earlier, and just took off like a shotgun shell off the starting line while Artemis was still trying to gain speed.
Well, these are big numbers, aren't they? We're posting already 45 knots as they head for the first mark. That may go still further once they've actually gone around it. Very, very testing to maneuver clean in these conditions, but the Swedes look to have taken a nice line. They're closing the gap a little bit, and again, the acceleration from both boats.
Coming up on the boundary where Japan will be able to jibe.
Okay, you got to think about the boundary here with him. Yeah, 15.
On board Artemis Racing.
Are we going to lay in? Yes. Okay, setting up.
Critical jibe in this race at such an early stage.
1 and forward. Wait, forward down.
First jibe of the day, and right on the boundary marker.
Get it ripping, dude.
And it looks very much as if the Japanese are keen to spoil the air, if at all possible, for the Swedes in behind them.
Yeah, well, the Japanese actually started their jibe later and finished it earlier. They just had a really solid jibe right there. Kind of got themselves out of a slightly tricky spot, but better boat handling for sure in that first jibe. Punches them back out to a bit of a lead.
Well, they got the start that they wanted, the Japanese. These the heart rates of the two skippers, and Nathan Outridge is pumping just that little bit quicker than Dean Barker's at this point. Rounding the first gate. Not a huge amount in it, and the boat speed still really strong from the Swedish crew as they round the gate. 16 meters in it. This is going to be a proper scrap with the stakes just about as high as they possibly could be.
Again, being helped out by the boundary. SoftBank Team Japan gets help there. They can tack. Once they get within 3, both boats have a pretty slow tack. Both boats fell off the foil there, but Artemis looked pretty solid coming out of that leeward gate. And you know what? Just in general, they look more solid compared to what we saw a couple days ago. Here's a big drag race right now, all the way across, bow to bow. Beautiful sight.
Phenomenal sight in a phenomenal setting. Neck and neck. Great competition out there on the Great Sound.
Slight mistake, and it's going to be costly for either boat right now. Artemis is pretty quick.
We go to boundary and tack. Copy.
That's voices on board Artemis. Oh, these little tiny dig in by SoftBank Team Japan. You saw it just cost them another boat length right there. You gotta wonder if those foils aren't a little bit suspect for them after that collision heading out to the starting line.
I mean, it's hard to gauge, isn't it? Stability-wise, these are not the conditions for total stability.
Artemis can tack on the port tack. Japan has to stay clear.
Press, press. I will. 3. Get in, Brittle.
So the Swedes crossing.
All right, let's go, boys. Up we come.
Japan's in trouble now. Overlap. They're going to get luffed head to win. We're seeing real match racing.
Okay, racing.
So Japan delays their tack at that last boundary, gets themselves into a huge predicament, gets luffed head to win. And Artemis is protesting them. So Artemis, no penalty. Artemis had absolute rights to tack onto port tack at the boundary. Japan had to keep clear.
All right, let's go, boys. Up we come.
They just went a little too far, had a kind of a lousy tack, got themselves shoved head to win. They have to stay out of the way of Artemis. My goodness, what a turn of events. They just went a little late. Artemis hooks them immediately. Here on the ridge. Come on, boys, up we come. Shot out the back end.
Very, very tight, but a critical maneuver from the Swedes, who are now out in front, knowing that if they can cling on to this lead from here on in, their place in the Challenger final is assured. Long, long way to go as yet.
I guarantee you, Barker wants that whole sequence back again, because I think their error was they just waited a little too late. If they had just tacked on what's called the lee bow or to leeward or to the right-hand side of Artemis rather than shifting over to the left, by shifting to the left, they automatically put themselves in a really suspect position to be luffed exactly as Nathan Outeridge did. Tacking. If you're SoftBank, you tack right away. But they waited, and by waiting, Artemis just pops right up on the foil. Not such a great tack by Japan, and all of a sudden, you are give-way boat on Japan. You're right-away boat on Artemis. I think both boats did what they could to stay out of each other's way, so there were penalty buttons pushed, but no fouls indicated. Goodness.
That is the net result. Just a handful of minutes later. Plenty of clear water between the Swedes and the Japanese at this point. What a turnaround it would be for Nathan Outeridge and his crew if he could seal this place in the Challenger final, having been 3-1 down in the series.
On that long starboard tack all the way across the race course, way back when on this leg, it seems like a half an hour ago, Artemis was quick, and that put the pressure on Japan.
Yep.
everything working pretty nicely for the Swedes at this point. And again, they're just barely losing any boat speed as they round the gate, which is pretty pivotal, you would think. The Japanese just seem to be a little bit wobbly today, and whether that's anything to do with the collision they suffered in advance of the race, it's going to be hard to tell. But there again, Ken, just not the kind of maneuver that they're after right now.
Any nicks out of any foils could be catastrophic. These foils are so perfect for what they have to do. So on the edge, you got to believe any scuffs or scrapes or gouges out of the foils would be absolutely catastrophic to control. And I think you're right. I think we're seeing them not quite as in control as we're used to seeing them, and that has to have some bearing.
Let's bring in Andrew Campbell, who's our man on the water this afternoon. He's part of the Oracle Team USA outfit here in Bermuda. Andrew, great to have you with us. What's your read on proceedings so far? Do you think there's every chance that the Japanese boat was damaged and they're suffering as a result out there now?
Gosh, it's hard to tell, but man, like you say, these boards, the finish is so important. These guys would have boat builders in there polishing them to the last moment, and the reality is that they don't want anybody even touching them with their fingers when they leave the dock rather than hitting something on the water. So it could make a big impact and could be working in those boat handling situations.
Yeah, Andrew, we definitely saw one scrape in one of our earlier views of a dagger board, in a gouge or a scrape. That would be huge, right?
Yeah, well, you know, as soon as the water hits that gouge, it fans out behind it and it affects all the lift characteristics of that board. So, you know, we didn't see it too much out of that start and on that reach. So it's hard to understand where it would be affecting them, but it could show up in the worst moments.
Still, the outer edge heart rate is high, maybe with excitement at this point rather than nerves. You would expect them to be eyeing that prize pretty carefully at this point, with that kind of distance between themselves and Dean Barker's Japanese crew.
Not the best jibe from Artemis Racing right there. When you come out of a jibe going 20 knots slower than your competitor, so now look, that's not perfect, but fortunately they have a bit of a lead to burn right now, and possibly might have jibed a little bit early for this gate. We'll have to see if they can get down to the gate okay. And once they get down to the gate, it's still a continued run all the way into the finish. There's not a reach into the finish today. It's actually, they're going to stay on this almost a downwind course. They're going to make it through okay. A little slow. They continue downwind all the way to the finish. I'll tell you what, Japan is coming in fast. And I even got lost on the amount of laps. Sorry, I'm losing my mind here. I got lost on the laps. Okay, we got a little more to go.
Yeah. Hold fire, Ken.
You can tell me next time. You had a big smile.
It's okay. I'm just waiting for you to fall into that large hole. So, upwind they go. So again, the Swedes taking it right to the boundary before the tack. Again, let's analyze the stability of this tack from the Japanese. It's just about okay.
Yep.
Coming out.
The grinders are not letting up one little bit. Constantly in the 90% bracket. Those boys just leaving it all out there on the boat. They know a handful more minutes and their work is done for the time being, and they can line up against the Kiwis in the Challenger playoff final. And a couple of days ago, that was not what was expected. It's going to be very, very difficult for the the Japanese to deal with this if it goes against them in the final analysis, for Dean Barker particularly. When you consider what happened to him 4 years ago in San Francisco, a healthy 8-1 advantage in the match itself against Oracle Team USA. The cup was there for the taking, and it was snaffled from under his nose. Here, 3-1 up, potentially going out to the Swedes. The race not done, but he's got to bring something special to the party now.
Only about 150 yards behind, 150 meters, I might say, and as we've seen, that's a one mistake lead right there. So if you're Artemis, do not take your foot off the pedal even a little bit.
We haven't seen enough consistency from either of these crews through the fortnight here so far, Ken, have we, to suggest that there won't be a twist in the tail?
Correct. But I'll tell you what, Artemis is going quick today. They were quick on that first upwind leg, and they've been quick on this beat. Japan's starting to run out of real estate.
The only team so far to have actually beaten the defenders, Oracle Team USA. 2 race wins in the qualifying stage for the Swedes over the Americans. And I think Jimmy Spithill and co will be watching this with great interest and perhaps a degree of trepidation. On their day, they are more than a match for anybody else out there.
Now, Japan should gain one more attack. They should be able to go to ley line here and only have to do, so both boats one more attack. So this 200-meter or so lead should be accurate, approximately accurate, at the top gate. And there should be a split at the top gate. So this is actually, by continuing to the boundary by Japan, they're actually setting up a situation that at least gives them a chance.
Precision that time from Dean Barker and co.
Press. Still pressing. Nice.
Wind speed pretty consistent out there. It's not quite the craziness of a couple of days ago, but it's not too far wide of the mark.
Artemis laying the right-hand side gate of the gate, and I believe Japan laying the left-hand side of the gate. So Japan will get a split, and they've come into him a little bit here. The extra tack, I believe, by Artemis probably cost them maybe 50 or so yards, but here we go. Drag race starts. That extension when they start going 46 knots and the other guy's only going 30.
So one last dice roll from Dean Barker and the Japanese as they round the top gate. Downwind for the final time in the race, and then the reach to the finish. They've got to pull it out right here, right now, or their America's Cup campaign is over.
They're going to need a good-sized wind shift out here if you're Team Japan. Both boats going very similar speeds around the track ever since that early mistake by Dean Barker, and he's going to need a good solid shift to get him back into it because Artemis just isn't going slow enough.
Setting up.
Picking up a little bit of extra pace on the far side of the course. But
he needs the breeze to call a right-hand turn, right-hand shift. He needs a big right-hand shift right now as he comes back across to try to get a better angle towards the final gate. Not getting much of it. So that 200-meter or so lead.
It might be enough.
Artemis Racing will only have to do one more jibe here. It's likely that Japan's going to have to do 2 more jibes.
Yeah, we'll go a bit further. Looking at his angle, you are laying okay. I just keep some in the bank so we can. I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Talking about keeping some in the bank, that means we're probably at ley line, but let's not take a chance here. We got a little lead. Let's go a little beyond ley line to make sure we can come into this bottom gate smoking fast and not have to drive 2 more times.
So don't put too much in the bank. Okay. Not far here. Okay, getting up. Firing.
These sailors now right on the edge, right on the limits. 40 knots. High octane stuff. Great drama out there and the great sound, but what has happened to the Swedes here out in front? They've just stuffed the bows into the water and it's allowing the Japanese to gain.
Wrong place at the wrong time. Goodness. They couldn't do it any other way, though, could they? I mean, either of these teams.
Well, this is going to be just about as nail-biting as a race can be. Japan now have a chance. They're close to within 130-odd meters. This the final gate. This the final run for Sweden. They are close, really close. Have they done enough?
It's straight in to the finish line here. There's no rounding of this gate. It's straight in, almost downwind. They may even have to jibe for this finish line. Goodness, Artemis, they know how to make it close.
It's looking like the finish line will belong to the Swedes. The Japanese just haven't got enough firepower from here to overhaul them. Nathan Outridge knows he's close. Close to the moment of celebration. And it will be the Swedes who roll on to the Challenger final against the New Zealanders. From 3-1 down, they've pulled it out of the bag. And the Japanese are down and out. All that hard work paying off for Nathan Outridge and Ian Percy and all the rest of the Swedish crew. Heartache and heartbreak for Dean Barker, for him personally, a hammer blow. Echoes of San Francisco 4 years ago when the trophy slipped through his fingers. They've squandered a 3-1 lead in this semi-final. And the search for their first America's Cup trophy is over.
When you're ready.
What a race.
That is one proud man right there, Ian Percy. They knew they were in for a battle. Everybody associated with the America's Cup knew that, and the fans, of course, knew that these two teams really entered this contest very even on